Good day, everyone. As this moment, I will be going to discuss to you about the respiratory exercise physiology, the cardiovascular exercise physiology, and the homothermal control and the thermal regulation. So now let's find out first the respiratory exercise physiology.
It is the physiological determinants of optimum endurance efficiency include the ability to transport oxygen to the working body, the diffusion from the muscle to the mitochondria, the production of energy and the development of power, and both influenced by central nervous system impulses. Most exercise scientists would then conclude.
In generally, the pulmonary system capabilities much exceeds for the specifications needed during the exercise for the ventilations and gas exchange. So, however, pag yung paggawa natin ng physical activity ay hindi natin nagagamit yung balance or pinaulit-ulit or pinasosobra natin ang paggawa ng physical activity, the structural and the functional properties of the lungs and also the airways ay hindi bubuti. So that's the reason why we need to do the physical activities balance. So, and now let's proceed to the functions of the respiratory system. So what are the functions of the respiratory system? And the function of the respiratory system for the cardiovascular system is para mag-increase of blood flow and also oxygen na mag-deliver sa contracting muscles.
And now let's proceed to the respiratory adaptation, which is given the large capacity of the respiratory system to improve airflow and response to exercise, as well as the comparatively low expense of breathing oxygens or energy expenditure. In terms of the proportion of the overall cost of body oxygen, the criteria for aerobic endurance training of the human respiratory system are not as high as they are for other systems. So as a result, chronic exercise activity produces far less adaptations than in the cardiovascular system and skeletal system.
So if we say respiratory adaptation, it is the strength and the endurance of the diaphragm and intercostal muscles improve. So ang function ani is para it is ability to breathe more air and para maka-less or makaiwas po ta sa fatigue or sa kahawoy dayon during the exercise. So, di ba, kabalo naman ta na during exercise, magayus jud ta og more oxygens and produces carbon dioxides due to the muscles work. So, para makup na to ang extra demand ani is kailangan na to gamiton or mubuhat o any physical activity na maka-breath deeper para maka-gain na pud ta og another oxygen. So like for example kanang gikan ka sa physical activity or exercise na kanang makagawas og carbon dioxide, kanang dugay kaayo or lisod kaayo, just like for example ani aerobic. So kailangan mag-focus sa ka or buhaton sa nimo ang aerobic like walking para maka-breath na pud kag deeper and makagain na pud kag another oxygen. So that's for the respiratory adaptations.
And now let's proceed to the anatomy of the lungs.
So unsa maning anatomy of the lungs? So if we say anatomy of the lungs, it focuses only the part of the lungs. So we all know that the lungs are the major organ of the respiratory systems and divided into sections. So the right lungs have 3 lobes and which is slightly larger than the left lungs has 2 lobes. So ang right lungs naa siya 3 lobes and the left lungs naa siya 2 lobes. So did you know that the lungs are separated by the mediastinum? So this area contains the heart, the trachea, the esophagus, and any lump of nodes. So that's it for the anatomy of the lungs. And let's proceed to the next topic, which is the gross anatomy of the heart.
And for this moment, I will be discuss the gross anatomy of respiratory system.
So what is the gross structure respiratory system? So in summary, the respiratory system includes the mouth, the nose, the pharynx, the larynx, the trachea, the bronchi, the bronchioles, and the alveoli. So the upper respiratory system begins with the nose and ends with the pharynx. So the lower respiratory system begins with the larynx or the voice of the box and ends with the alveoli. So that's for the gross structure of the respiratory system.
And for this moment, I will be discuss the cardiovascular exercise physiology. So if we say cardiovascular exercise physiology, it is one of the main areas of exercise physiology is the study of the physiology of aerobic exercise. It explores how the cardiovascular system transports oxygen and other nutrients and utilizes the muscles during exercise.
So, if you say cardiovascular system, ito yung binubuo ng puso, mga daloy ng mga dugo, or which is what we call the blood vessels, and also the blood. So, the primary aim of this system is to supply nutrients and to eliminate metabolic waste product. So, ang cardiovascular system, it is the responsible for delivering blood to the different parts of the body. So, yun yung ng functions or work ng cardiovascular system.
And now let's discuss the anatomy of the heart.
So lately we discussed the anatomy of the lungs, which is also focuses on the part of the lungs only. So now in this moment I will going to discuss the anatomy of the heart, which is focuses only for the parts of the heart. So our heart is the main organ of the cardiovascular system and the network of the blood vessels that pumps blood throughout our body. So
And now let's discuss the chambers, the values, and the blood flow within the heart. So the heart has 4 chambers: the right atrium, the left atrium, and the right ventricle. And the left ventricle as stated before LV. So the RA and the LA serve primarily as blood's reservoir, respectively bringing blood into the RV and LV. And the RV provides the main force through the pulmonary circuit for moving blood. So the main force of moving blood through the systematic circuit is given by the left ventricle. And now let's discuss the arteries and the arterioles. So if we say arteries and arterioles, it joins the vascular system, which is composed of multiple blood vessels after blood flows from the heart. And the blood vessels supply the tissues with blood, help facilitate the exchange with cells of nutrients, metabolic waste, hormones, and other substances, and return blood to the heart.
So if you say an artery, it is carries blood away from the heart and distribute throughout the body by it succeeding the smaller branches. So eventually, the smallest branch of the artery is called the arterioles, so which further divided into tiny vessels from the capillary bed. So, and if we say capillaries, it is the...
And now, for the capillaries, it is dense networks that branch across all tissues are generated by capillaries. The capillary walls are very thin with a length of about 1 mm on average and a diameter of 0.01 mm. So this is only big enough for it to move through a single red blood cells. The main role of the capillaries is the exchange between the blood and the different body tissues of oxygen, fluid, nutrients, electrolytes, hormones, and other substances. And for the venules and veins, via the venous portion of the circulation system, blood flows back to the heart. Tiny venules coverage into capillaries, which coverage into veins. So some veins contain one-way values, such as those of the legs, that help prevent the blood from flowing away from the heart. And for this moment, I will be going to discuss the homothermal control and temperature regulation during exercise. So if we say sweat evaporation and increased blood flow from the skin are efficient mechanism for the body's heat dissipation, but dehydration impairs the ability to sweat and lose body heat. So the ability to lose heat from the body can be affected by hot, humid conditions or inadequate clothing, and by increasing the insensitivity of the sweat rate, core temperature relationship, reducing the core temperature threshold for sweating, and increasing total blood volume. Exercise training increases resistance to exercise in the sun. So ang pagsabot sa sweat evaporations in order to evaporate sweat daw, the heat from the body must be transferred to the skin. So that's what so kung gina-discuss ka ganiya earlier na we need to drink a lot of water before we going to do the performance of the physical activity. And now let's proceed to the body temperature regulation during the exercise. So if we say thermoregulation, it is a process that allows your body to maintain its core internal temperature. So all thermoregulation mechanisms are designed to return your body to homeostasis. And this is state of equilibrium thermoregulation to keep the body within a tight temperature range. So this is essential for health and as it allows organs and bodily process to work effectively. So that's it for the thermoregulation during exercise. And now let's proceed to the hydration effects on temperature regulation. So sweat production also exceeds water intake during exercise in the sun, leading to the body water deficit or hydration and loss of electrolytes. There can be major daily water losses and people need to prioritize drinking during exercise as well as the mealtime. So heat stress and hypohydrations are likely to adversely affect aerobic exercise activities, and the warmer the atmosphere, the greater the risk of the decreased efficiency, and the hypohydration increases the accumulation of the heat and decrease the capacity of one withstand heat stress.
So if we say hydration manggod, isa ni siya sa mga causes pag nag-perform tag physical activity. So muna para maka-avoid ta sa hydration, kailangan ta mo inom jud og we need drink a water always and or before mag-perform tag physical activity. Kay di ba mabantayan nato na kung mag-perform tag physical activity is singuton jud ta mawala ang tubig, and that's the reason na mawala ang tubig sa ato ang body, and that's the reason din na magka-hydration ta, and that's why we need to drink a lot of water before to perform the physical activity. So isa na siya sa mga tips para tips before ka mag-perform sa physical activity. You must need to drink water para ma-avoid ang hydration.
And that's all for the respiratory exercise physiology, cardiovascular exercise physiology, and the homothermal control and temperature regulation. So I hope you will learn about my discussion, and thank you.